The 14 most gruesome torture methods in history. Warning, this video is not for the faint of heart. Number 14. The heretic's fork. This torture device consisted of a metal piece with two opposed bi-pronged forks attached to a belt or strap. One end of the device was pushed under the chin, the other to the sternum, and the strap was used to secure the victim's neck to the tool while they hung from the ceiling or was somehow suspended so that they could not sleep. If their heads dropped, the prongs would pierce their throat and chest. Number 13. Saw torture. In this method, the victim was hung upside down so that their blood will rush to their heads and keep them conscious during the long torture process. The torturer would then saw through the victim's body until they were completely cut in half. Most were cut up only in their abdomen in order to prolong the agony. Number 12. The Spanish donkey. Of all the torture devices used during the Spanish Inquisition, this was known to be the most gruesome. The victim is put astride naked on a donkey-like apparatus, which is actually a vertical wooden board with a sharp V-wedge on top of it. Afterwards, the torturer would add varying weights to the victim's feet until the wedge finally sliced through the victim's body. Number 11. The Iron Maiden. The Iron Maiden was a torture device consisting of an iron cabinet with a hinge front and a spike-covered interior, sufficient enough to enclose a human being. Once inside its conical frame, the victim would be unable to move due to the great number of steel spikes impaling them from every direction. The interrogator would then scream questions at the victim while poking them with jagged edges. Number 10. The Brazen Bull. Also known as the Sicilian Bull, the Brazen Bull was designed in ancient Greece for its commissioner Phalaris, the tyrant of Acragas in Sicily. Victims would be locked inside this brass bull statue while a fire kindles underneath its belly. The beast's metal underside would turn molten yellow as the human contents were slowly roasted alive. Their skin and muscles would eventually melt right off the bone. Its hollow brass cavity was designed to amplify the screams and groans through the nostrils, like a boiling kettle, mimicking the sound of a roaring bull. Such was the symphonic goal of its inventor, Perilos of Athens. As if being pressure cooked wasn't bad enough, the scorched remains were often fashioned into trinkets and sold at the local market. Number 9. The Tub. Known as the punishment of sitting in the tub, this torture method involved decaying alive. A convicted person would be restrained in a wooden tub filled with water to their necks. Their exposed head and face were then painted with milk and honey to attract hungry swarms of flies. All the while, the executioner would regularly feed the prisoner, forcing them to bathe in their own excrement. After a few days, maggots and worms would comfortably feast and grow while the victim witnessed their own body rot. Number 8. The Revolving Drum. The revolving drum was a torture device similar to a cheese grater, but instead of cheese, it was used to finely shred a human torso. It was a popular tool used in Spain for extracting information from prisoners. Any resistance to the questions being asked, and this pillar of spikes would be turned, raking against the victim's pressed body. This is repeated slowly and steadily until disembowelment. Number 7. Chinese bamboo torture. Bamboo is one of the fastest growing plants on Earth. Some species can grow 3 feet in just a day. It was only a matter of time before someone observed this as an opportunity for torture. While it originated in ancient China, it was rumored to have been used on prisoners of war during World War II. As part of the preparation, living bamboo is cut sharp and close to the ground to create a bed of speared tips. The victim is suspended horizontally above the patch. As the plant grows at its natural speed, it would pierce through the body and continue upward, ultimately causing one of the most continuous and painful deaths ever imagined. Number 6. Scaphism. The name scaphism comes from the Greek word scaphi, meaning scooped or hollowed. It is a less known form of torture that involves a naked captive being chained to a pair of hollowed tree trunks. They were left to float around a stagnant pond while occasionally being force-fed milk and honey. They would develop serious diarrhea, which further attracted insects to devour the moist, exposed flesh. This process would last well over a week. Number 5. The breaking wheel. Also known as the Catherine wheel, this torture device was designed to break every bone in a victim's body. First, the individual's limbs are tied to the spokes of a large wooden wheel and would then be revolved slowly as a torturer randomly smashed bones with an iron hammer. Once they were finished with shattering the skeleton, the mangled person would be left out, sometimes taking many days to die of dehydration. All the while, birds would pick at the bloody, swollen heap of bone fragments and skin. In more merciful situations, the executioner would get orders to deliver a coup de grace or a final blow to the chest and end the suffering. Number 4. Rat torture. Rat torture was a slow process that required very easy-to-find materials: rats, a metal bowl or bucket, and a torch. It was first developed and used during the Dutch revolts of the 16th century. First, a prisoner was tied naked to a table, belly side up. Disease-infected rats were then placed inside a metal container with its open side strapped to the victim's body. A torch would be used to heat up the metal bowl, making the rats frantic. As the rats panicked, they would try to escape the hot metal container with no way out except through the victim's flesh. They'd claw, dig, and gnaw their way through, eventually causing death through disembowelment. Number 3. The Judas Cradle. The Spanish Inquisition was known for its many torture devices, and the Judas Cradle was one of the most painful. Closely related to impalement, this gruesome punishment involved sitting a victim atop a raised wooden pyramid, with their hands and legs being pulled down by ropes. The seat would rip open the victim's anal orifice over an extended period of time. This was often sometimes done naked, and the seat was rarely washed. So if the torturing process didn't kill you, infection eventually would. Number 2. The rack. Feared to be the most painful device of medieval torture, the rack was designed to dislocate every joint in a victim's body. It was first used on early Christian martyrs, such as Vincent of Saragossa. The structure of this piece is a large wooden frame with rollers at the top and at the bottom of it. The arms and legs were securely bound to these rollers, and as the torturers turned a wheel, the restraints would tighten. Each turn would dislocate more and more joints until all limbs were completely torn off the victim's torso. The rack was so disturbing that during interrogations, forcing a prisoner to watch this torture device was more than enough to get them talking. Number 1. Impalement. This was the favorite execution method of Vlad the Impaler of 15th century Romania. Impalements involved bending a person over, then forcing them to sit upon a sharp, thick pole. The pole was then raised vertically and would slowly slide through the person, thus skewering the body. This could sometimes take up to 3 days, depending on the victim's weight. A horrendous event was once told of Vlad the Impaler, in which he ordered and watched this done to 20,000 people while enjoying a meal. Find out more about painful ways to die by